Okay, so the next one, what areas do you review first when looking to improve margins? Okay, so before I dive in, when you're sending these questions in, if you could just please name the sector that you operate in, it makes it easier for me to hopefully provide the value that you're looking for, because these things can vary among sectors. So I can give you like the broad answer, but sometimes I can be a little bit more concise if I know what sector the business actually operates in. So the two ways that you're going to probably want to look at first to improve margins, one's going to be reducing the current costs, and then also minimizing the amount of future costs that needs to be added as the company starts to grow. So you're going to want to look at what it costs to operate the business itself, and then look at the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves. Okay, so for instance, if you're using if you need to operate out of like say a fixed location, then the rent is a must-have. But then what can I use here as an example? If it has a filtered water system, or I don't know, a bespoke built office gym, those things are nice to have. I'm not saying they don't serve their purpose, but you get a gist. You need to look at what the business actually needs for you to continue to operate, versus the things that probably a ton of software subscriptions is another thing. They seem to build up quite quick. So really go through these line by line, have a little look at, what things could be potentially eroding margin. Even if they're small, they compound over a long period of time. So you add more and more to it. Now, then you have the cost of goods, which is, an actual direct cost of producing your product, or, the delivery of the service that you provide. So you need to be careful when stripping out costs here, because you don't want to compromise the quality of fulfillment, because long term that's just going to be damaging to the business itself. And then you also have the cost to serve your existing customers, right? And these are things like technical support, account management, any form of customer service. So I would say this is your starting point, and then from here is really analyzing each part of this, and then you can decide what directly affects revenue and then what doesn't. And then from there, you're deciding, I suppose, where you can be more efficient. And then lastly, there's always going to be a cost to acquire new customers, right? Especially if you're marketing, and I'd imagine that most of you are. I know there's some businesses that rely on referrals alone, but really you should be out there hunting every single month, especially if you're looking to grow. So the cost to acquire customers, because some things are much more resource heavy than others. And then also, look, you want to stop serving any unprofitable customers. Just cut them loose. I know it's hard, but some customers you find, when you've let them go, and you free up some of the capacity that they're taking up, you can onboard new customers, and they're less resource heavy and more profitable. Okay, but look, I suppose, just to be quite broad about this, improving margins isn't just random cost cutting. You really have to understand which costs actually drive revenue, or which ones protect revenue, and then trying to look at all those costs and then try to reallocate these costs resourcefully. Okay, because you can get more out of the same revenue if you fix the economics. Okay, a good example of this, actually, before I move on. So we had a plumbing business around 6 years ago. The company had quite high call volume from letting agents and landlords, and the emergency call outs at the time were priced the same as normal scheduled work. And they were doing a lot of, how can I say this, quick unpaid fixes as favors, and it just didn't really make sense for the business. So all we did was we introduced a minimum call out fee, which is very much common sense, and then or premium pricing on emergency call out. So no more freebies, no more favors, which is the same workload, but after doing this, the revenue per job increased. So we had a lot less people wasting our time, but it's just a small thing that we did, but it did make quite a big difference. Of course, we did other things too. We cut around 20% of the bad paying customers that used to try and get everything for nothing. But overall, look, these small changes makes a big difference to the business and culture itself. Because in our case, team morale improved. It did give us a lot more capacity to work, especially with those new customers on new pricing. But we found that most plumbing firms, you know, they're all the same as other trades too. A lot of the other trades, they try to grow, they're working harder, but growth and margin expansion is really going to come from price and discipline and selecting the customers carefully and removing the friction as you do it. But yeah, it's the same as a lot of the trades businesses and just construction companies in general. So I don't know if that helped. I hope it did. Like I said, if you can really name the sector that the question is about, it does make things a lot easier.